When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I didn't want anyone to see how much her words cut through me. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, right after lunch. The house smelled like roast chicken and fresh bread. My son, Michael, was sitting at the end of the dining table, half listening to a football game playing softly in the living room. The grandkids were giggling over ice cream. It should have been an ordinary, happy family day. But that day, something changed. I remember standing up to clear the dishes, and my daughter-in-law, Emily, said, in that calm, polite voice of hers, "Mom, maybe next time you could just relax and let us handle things." It sounded harmless, didn't it? But the way she said "Mom," it wasn't the warm kind. It was the kind that drew a line between us. The kind that said you're not really part of this family anymore. I laughed a little, tried to make light of it. "Oh, old habits die hard," I said. But the room went quiet. Michael didn't look up. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, or maybe I only imagined it. But my hands started trembling as I held a plate. I tried to keep busy, keep smiling, but that smile felt heavy. When I finally went home that evening, the drive felt longer than usual. The sky was turning orange, and the radio played some soft country song I didn't even recognize. I kept thinking about that moment, about the way she looked at me. And then I asked myself, when did I become an outsider in my own son's home? It's strange how family changes, isn't it? You raise your children, pour your heart into them, and one day, someone else becomes the center of their world. You tell yourself it's natural, that's how life goes. But knowing it doesn't make it hurt any less. That day, the day my daughter-in-law broke my heart, wasn't loud or cruel. It was quiet, almost invisible. But sometimes silence can bruise deeper than words. And I didn't know then. That moment was only the beginning. I've always believed that a home isn't built by walls. It's built by people. And for most of my life, my little white house on the corner of Maple Street was my whole world. Michael grew up there. He was my only child, my whole heart. His father, James, passed away when Michael was in high school. It was sudden, a heart attack at work. For weeks after the funeral, I'd find Michael sitting on the porch steps, staring at the sky like he was waiting for his dad to walk through the door. Those were the days I learned what quiet strength meant. I had to be both mother and father, firm when I needed to be, gentle when he needed a shoulder. I remember packing his lunch every morning, adding those little notes with corny quotes. He used to groan, "Mom, no one's mom still does this." But I'd see him smile when he thought I wasn't looking. He was a good kid, never gave me trouble. Went to college a few hours away in Chicago, and I missed him every single day. I'd send care packages, cookies, socks, photos of the garden, anything to remind him of home. When he met Emily, I remember the first phone call about her. His voice had that lightness, that kind of warmth that says someone new is in my life. He said, "Mom, she's different. You'll like her." And I did. At least, I wanted to. Emily was smart, well-spoken, confident. She worked in marketing, always dressed sharp, blazers, heels, perfect hair, the kind of woman who made heads turn when she walked into a room. I was proud that my son had found someone like her. The first time she visited, I made pot roast, the way James used to love it. Emily smiled politely, said it was delicious, though I noticed she barely touched it. Later, Michael told me she was vegan. I laughed it off, but something inside me felt embarrassed. I wished he'd told me before. Still, I wanted to make her feel welcome. When they got engaged, I helped plan the shower, made centerpieces by hand, and even let her pick the songs for the reception. She called me Mom that day, her voice light, almost affectionate. It made me tear up. I thought we were going to be close. After the wedding, they moved into a neat little house across town. We still talked often at first, Sunday dinners, phone calls, birthday surprises. I tried to give them space. Every mother knows that newlyweds need to find their rhythm. But slowly, things began to shift. Michael became harder to reach. "Busy at work," he'd say. Emily would answer my texts with polite, short replies. Sometimes I'd offer to help when they had the kids over later, 2 little ones, Sam and Lily, but she'd decline, saying, "We've got it handled, Mom." It was always we, never you. One time I dropped by unannounced with a casserole, just wanting to surprise them. Emily opened the door, smiling that tight, polite smile. "Oh, you didn't have to do that," she said, but she didn't invite me in. I could hear the kids laughing inside, and my heart sank. Driving home that day, I remember gripping the steering wheel, trying not to cry. I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe I was the one holding on too tightly. That's the thing about motherhood. You never really stop wanting to be needed. When Sam turned 5, they threw a birthday party at their house. I came early to help set up. Emily was arranging balloons and cupcakes, and I asked where I could put the gift. She said, "Oh, just leave it on the porch for now. We're trying to keep the clutter down inside." It was a small comment, but it stung. The porch? That didn't feel like family. Throughout the afternoon, I watched as she greeted her friends warmly, laughed with the neighbors, and called her parents Mom and Dad. She meant no harm, I suppose. But every time she said those words, a little part of me wilted. Later, when I offered to help serve cake, she said, "It's okay, Mom, just relax. We've got everything covered." Her tone was kind, but distant, like someone speaking to a guest. That night, I sat at home by the kitchen window with a cup of chamomile tea, watching the rain slide down the glass. I thought about James, about how he would have known what to say, how to ease the ache I couldn't quite name. I started to realize that love in families doesn't always fade loudly. Sometimes it slips away quietly, replaced by politeness, by distance, by silence. Still, I kept showing up. I told myself love doesn't quit just because it hurts. And that's how it went, until that Sunday afternoon, when the world I'd built around my family began to crumble in front of everyone. The thing about family tension is that it doesn't start with shouting. It starts with small silences, with pauses that used to be filled with laughter. At first, I told myself it was just a phase. People change, children grow up, homes evolve. I thought, maybe I just need to adjust. But little by little, I began to feel like a guest in my son's life. Every Sunday, I'd still cook lunch. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. All the things Michael grew up loving. I'd call and invite them over, and most weeks, Emily would answer. Sometimes she'd say, "We'll see if the kids aren't too tired." Other times, "Oh, we promised to visit her parents this weekend." Her parents lived only 15 minutes away. Mine was a 40-minute drive. Yet somehow, they always seemed to have more time for them. I didn't say anything. You don't want to be the kind of mother who complains. You just nod, smile, and say, "Of course, honey, maybe next week." And then the weeks turn into months. One winter afternoon, I baked cookies and decided to bring some to the kids after school. I called ahead. No answer. I went anyway. When I arrived, Emily was in the driveway, talking on her phone. She hung up quickly when she saw me. "Oh, hi," she said, her voice surprised. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "I just thought I'd bring some cookies for Sam and Lily." I held up the tin, smiling. "That's sweet, but we're actually heading out soon," she said. "Maybe next time, just give me a heads up, okay?" She said it kindly, but the words landed heavy, like I'd broken a rule I didn't know existed. I left the cookies anyway. Later that evening, I wondered if she threw them out. A few weeks later, it was Easter. I decorated the house, bought little baskets for the kids, filled them with candy and tiny toys. I called to invite them over for brunch. Emily answered again. "Oh, Easter morning's tricky, she said. We're going to her parents' church this year. Maybe we'll stop by in the afternoon. They didn't. That night, I sat in the quiet house, staring at the untouched Easter eggs on the counter. It was strange. I'd spent my whole life building a home full of warmth and noise, and now the silence felt almost too big. Sometimes I'd look through old photo albums, pictures of Michael in his baseball uniform, James teaching him how to ride a bike. Back then, I was his whole world. Now I was… what? A visitor? A reminder of a time that no longer fit into his new life? One day in early summer, I decided to invite them all for a barbecue. I spent the morning cleaning the backyard, setting up the old picnic table, hanging a few fairy lights along the fence. The air smelled like charcoal and jasmine. I was hopeful. Maybe this would bring us closer again. They arrived around 4 p.m. The kids ran to me right away, shouting, "Grandma," and hugging my legs. My heart melted. Emily followed behind, wearing a sundress and big sunglasses. She smiled politely. "This looks lovely," she said. "Thank you, sweetheart," I replied. "I made your favorite, grilled vegetables and a quinoa salad." "Oh, that's so thoughtful," she said, sounding genuinely surprised. "Thank you." For a while things felt nice. We talked about school, work, the weather. Michael helped me flip the burgers, the kids chased butterflies. It almost felt like old times. Then, as we sat down to eat, I mentioned an idea. I was thinking maybe the kids could spend next weekend with me. I'd love to take them to the county fair. Remember, Michael, how much you loved the Ferris wheel? Before he could answer, Emily said quickly, "Oh, we actually already have plans that weekend." I smiled. "That's okay. Maybe another time." But then she added, "You know, Mom, sometimes it's just easier if you ask me first before suggesting things like that. It confuses the kids when they think something's planned." Her tone was polite, but firm, and Michael stayed quiet. He didn't defend me, didn't say a word. I swallowed my embarrassment and nodded. "You're right. I didn't mean to overstep." That night, after they left, I cried. Quietly. The kind of cry where you don't make a sound, where the tears just fall because your heart can't hold them anymore. I started noticing everything after that. The way Emily always said "Mom" with that edge of distance, the way Michael avoided eye contact when she corrected me, the way they never asked me for advice anymore. It wasn't just about being left out, it was about being unseen. There was one Sunday lunch when my neighbor, Carol, came over to drop something off. She looked at me and said, "You're always cooking alone these days. Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Oh, everyone's busy. You know how life gets." But she saw through it. Women our age always do. As summer turned to autumn, the space between us grew even wider. I started to dread family gatherings, birthdays, holidays, dinners, because they all carried that same tension. At Thanksgiving, things finally cracked. I hosted that year, determined to make it perfect. I spent 2 days preparing turkey, stuffing, pies, even a vegan side dish for Emily. The house smelled like cinnamon and butter. When they arrived, everything seemed fine at first. But as we sat down, Emily commented quietly, "Oh, you used regular butter for the mashed potatoes? I should have brought something else." I said gently, "Oh, I didn't realize, but there's salad and roasted veggies too." She smiled thinly. "It's fine, Mom, I'll manage." I tried to brush it off, but I could feel the tension at the table. Even the kids went quiet. After dinner, as I cleared the plates, I heard Emily in the next room saying to Michael, "She means well, but it's just too much sometimes. I can't keep pretending everything's okay." Those words echoed in my head all night. Too much. That's what I'd become. Too much. And yet, I didn't stop trying. Love makes fools of us all. I kept baking, kept calling, kept hoping. Because what else can a mother do when her love isn't wanted the same way anymore? Then came that Sunday. The day that changed everything. The day my daughter-in-law broke my heart in front of everyone. It was a Sunday, like so many others before it. The air was warm, the kind that carries the smell of fresh-cut grass and blooming lilacs. I woke up early, just after 6, made myself a cup of tea, watched the sunlight crawl across the kitchen tiles, and thought, maybe today will be different. I'd been invited over for lunch. Emily had texted me midweek. "We're having a few people over Sunday. You're welcome to join us." I held on to those words, "You're welcome to join us," like a small gift. It wasn't exactly warm, but it was something. So I spent the morning baking an apple pie. Not just any pie, James's favorite recipe, the one Michael used to ask for every birthday. I even wrapped it carefully in a checkered cloth, the way I always used to. By noon, I was standing on their porch, pie in hand, my heart thudding quietly beneath my cardigan. Emily opened the door. She looked beautiful. Light blue blouse, gold earrings, her hair pulled back neatly. "Oh, Mom," she said, smiling politely. "You're early." I checked my watch. "Just a few minutes," I said softly. I didn't want to be late. Behind her, I could hear voices, laughter, the clinking of glasses. I recognized a few of their friends from town. She stepped aside. "Come in." The house looked lovely. Sunlight pouring in through the big kitchen windows, music playing faintly in the background. The smell of roasted vegetables and lemon filled the air. "Everything looks wonderful," I said. "Thanks," she replied, already moving toward the kitchen. "We've been planning this lunch for weeks. It's kind of a housewarming/summer kickoff thing." Housewarming. I hadn't realized they'd redone the kitchen. New tiles, new countertops. Everything gleamed. Michael appeared then, smiling. "Hey, Mom." He kissed my cheek quickly. "Glad you could make it." I smiled back. "Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart." For a while, everything was fine. I helped set a few plates, chatted with one of Michael's co-workers about the weather, and admired how much the kids had grown. But I could feel something. That quiet tension in the air. The kind that doesn't announce itself, but hums beneath every word. As everyone sat down at the long dining table, I placed the pie near the end, hoping someone might notice. "Oh, you brought dessert," Emily said when she saw it. "That's sweet." I smiled. "It's the old family recipe. Michael used to love it." She hesitated just a moment before saying, "Well, I actually made a lemon tart, but I'm sure people will enjoy yours too." The way she said too, soft but dismissive, stung. I tried to brush it off. Halfway through lunch, one of her friends mentioned how nice it must be to have help around with the kids. Emily laughed lightly and said, "Oh no, we pretty much handle everything ourselves. We like to keep things simple." Everyone nodded, smiling. It was such an ordinary sentence, nothing cruel about it. But for me, it was like a quiet blade, because I'd offered help so many times. I'd waited for those calls, those moments to be needed. And hearing her say we handle everything ourselves made me realize I wasn't part of we anymore. I looked at Michael. He didn't say anything, just sipped his drink, eyes on his plate. Later, when dessert came around, Emily stood and announced cheerfully, "I hope you all saved room for my lemon tart. It's gluten-free and vegan. My mom helped me with the recipe." Her mom. Everyone clapped lightly, admiring the tart. It did look beautiful, bright yellow with fresh berries on top. Someone asked, "What's that one at the end of the table?" Emily glanced over. "Oh, that's just a pie. Mom brought it. Just a pie." My hands froze in my lap. I smiled anyway. "It's apple. Homemade." There was an awkward pause. Then one of the guests said politely, "Oh, how nice," but no one touched it. As the plates went around, I sat quietly, listening to the laughter, the chatter. The sound felt distant, like I was underwater. Then it happened, the moment I'll never forget. Michael's youngest, Lily, came up to me and whispered, "Grandma, "Can I have your pie?" I smiled, relief flooding me. "Of course, darling." But before I could slice a piece, Emily said from across the table, her tone light but clear, "Oh no, honey, that one's not for now. It's full of sugar and we're trying to cut back." The table went silent for a second. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw the way my face fell. I looked down at my hands, pretending to adjust the napkin. "It's okay," I murmured. "Maybe later." Emily smiled. Not unkindly, just the way someone smiles when they've already decided something for you. The rest of lunch passed in a blur. The laughter returned, but not for me. I sat there, nodding, smiling, shrinking smaller with every passing minute. When it was time to leave, I wrapped the untouched pie in its cloth. Emily walked me to the door. "Thanks for coming, Mom," she said. "It was nice to see you." I nodded. "You too, sweetheart." She hesitated, then added, "And, next time, maybe just ask before bringing food? We've got a lot of dietary stuff now, and I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable." Her tone was calm, measured, not cruel, but it broke something in me anyway. I smiled. Of course. I understand. As I stepped outside, the sun was blinding. The air smelled of cut grass and lemon. I could hear laughter from inside, their laughter, the life continuing without me. I walked slowly to my car, pie still warm in my hands. My chest felt heavy, like something inside had cracked. When I got home, I set the pie on the counter. The kitchen was quiet, just the ticking clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I stood there for a long time before I finally cut a slice. The crust crumbled beneath the knife. I took a bite, and the sweetness almost made me cry. Not because it was bad, but because it tasted like everything I'd lost. I sat by the window as the afternoon light faded, watching the sky turn gold. I thought of all the years I'd spent building that family. The sleepless nights, the birthdays, the sacrifices, the love that never asked for anything back. And now I was just a guest who'd come too early. That night, before bed, I whispered into the quiet, "James, you'd know what to say. You'd know how to make this hurt less." But there was only silence, and somewhere deep inside I understood. That day, the day my daughter-in-law broke my heart, wasn't about pie or parties or polite words. It was about being unseen. It was about realizing that love, once taken for granted, doesn't always find its way back. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The house was wrapped in that gray-blue light that comes before dawn, the kind that makes everything feel both peaceful and lonely. The pie still sat on the counter, half-eaten. I covered it with foil and placed it in the fridge. I couldn't bear to throw it away. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window. Outside, the mail truck passed. A dog barked somewhere down the street. Life was moving on the way it always does, even when your heart hasn't caught up yet. For a while, I blamed myself. I kept thinking, maybe I was too much. Maybe I hovered. Maybe Emily just needs more space. But the more I turned it over, the more I realized this wasn't about blame. It was about change. Families evolve, and sometimes the people who built them are left standing at the edge, watching. That week, I tried to stay busy. I cleaned the attic, organized old photos, watered the garden. I found a box of Michael's childhood things. His first sneakers, the crayon drawing of our old house, a Father's Day card he'd made for James that said, "You're my hero." I sat on the floor and cried. Not loudly, just quiet tears that slipped down without permission. Then I did something small but brave. I called Carol, my neighbor. "Coffee?" she asked immediately. "Coffee," I said. We sat on her porch with 2 steaming mugs and a blanket over our knees. Carol had always been one of those straightforward women, gentle eyes, sharp sense of truth. I told her everything, every detail, every silence, every word that still stung. She listened, nodding, never interrupting. When I finished, she sighed and said, "Honey, sometimes love just changes clothes. It doesn't always leave, it just looks different. Her words sat with me. Love changes clothes. Maybe Emily's version of love was different. Maybe Michael's was too. Maybe I'd been trying to fit my old way of mothering into their new way of living. That afternoon, I took a walk through town. The farmer's market was open, kids running between stalls, the smell of kettle corn in the air. I bought a small bunch of wildflowers. The vendor, a young man with freckles, said, "For someone special?" I smiled. "Yes," I said softly. "For someone I'm trying to forgive." I didn't specify whether that someone was Emily or myself. Back home, I placed the flowers on the kitchen table. For the first time in a long while, the room didn't feel quite so empty. Days turned into weeks. Michael called once, just to check in. "Hey, Mom," he said. "How are you doing?" "I'm okay," I answered. "How's everyone?" He hesitated. "Good. Emily's been busy with work. The kids ask about you." That sentence, "the kids ask about you," felt like sunlight through a crack in a curtain. "They can come by any time," I said gently. "Tell them Grandma's garden is waiting." He promised he would, and I believed him. That night, I wrote a letter I never sent. "Dear Emily, I know things between us have felt strained. I want you to know I never meant to overstep. You are a wonderful mother, and I see how hard you try to build a good life for everyone. I only ever wanted to belong, not to take space, just to share it. If I've made mistakes, I hope one day we can talk about them with kindness. Mary." I folded the letter, tucked it inside a book on the shelf, and let it stay there, a quiet truce with myself. One evening, as summer softened into fall, I baked another apple pie. Not for anyone else this time, just for me. I opened the windows, let the smell fill the house, and thought about how healing sometimes looks like doing the same thing again, but differently. When the pie was done, I took one slice out to the porch. The sky was pink and gold. Somewhere down the street, wind chimes played a gentle tune. I whispered, "It's okay, James. I'm still here." For the first time, it didn't feel like I was waiting for someone to answer. Autumn came early that year. The maples on Maple Street turned a fiery red, and the evenings carried that crisp smell of wood smoke and apples. I'd spend my afternoons on the porch, knitting or watching the children from the neighborhood race their bikes past the gate. Life was quieter, but it wasn't empty anymore. One Thursday morning, the phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom," he said, his voice uncertain, "the kids keep asking about you. Would you want to come over Saturday? Maybe bake something together?" I didn't let my heart leap too high. I just said softly, "I'd love that." When Saturday came, I packed a small bag, aprons, cookie cutters, and a jar of cinnamon. Nothing fancy, just the things that always made children smile. On the drive over, I passed the old park where Michael learned to ride his bike. For a moment, I saw his 5-year-old grin in the rearview mirror, and I felt my courage steady. Emily opened the door this time with a gentler smile. "Hi, Mom," she said. "Come on in. The kids are in the kitchen." Her tone wasn't distant anymore. It wasn't quite warm either, but it was softer, like the first thaw after winter. Sam and Lily ran to me shouting, "Grandma!" Their little hands were sticky with frosting. "We're making cookies," Sam announced. I laughed. Then I came to the right place. For the next hour, we baked together, sprinkles on the floor, flour in our hair, giggles echoing through the house. Emily stayed nearby, cleaning up quietly, but every so often our eyes met, and we shared a small, understanding smile. At one point she said, "Your apple pie is kind of famous now. The neighbors keep asking about it." I chuckled. "Well, maybe I'll make one for Thanksgiving." "I'd like that," she said, and she meant it. When the cookies were done, Michael poured coffee for the two of us. We sat at the table while the kids watched a cartoon in the next room. He looked older somehow, tired but softer around the eyes. "Mom," he began, I should have spoken up that day. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much it hurt you. I smiled. It's all right, sweetheart. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words, but we all learn in our own time. He nodded. Emily felt bad too. She said she didn't mean to make you feel unwelcome. I know, I said. We were both just trying to find our place in the same family. We talked a while longer, about work, the kids, the garden, nothing dramatic, just ordinary conversation. But inside me, something heavy began to lift. As I drove home that evening, the sky was streaked with purple and orange. The air smelled of leaves and cinnamon. For the first time in months, I turned on the radio and hummed along. That night, I wrote a short note in my journal. Forgiveness isn't about being right. It's about choosing peace over pride. Over the next few weeks, things slowly settled into a new rhythm. Emily started calling now and then, asking for a recipe, sharing a photo of the kids' school projects. Sometimes she'd sign her texts with a little heart. It wasn't much, but it felt genuine. I found new joys too. I joined a community knitting circle at the church hall. We'd sit around a long table every Tuesday evening, sipping tea and sharing stories. Some of the women had lost husbands, some were empty nesters like me. We all carried our own small heartbreaks, stitched quietly into the scarves we made. One evening, Carol said, "You seem lighter these days, Mary." I smiled. Maybe I finally learned that love doesn't end when it changes shape. When Thanksgiving arrived, I baked 2 pies this time. 1 apple, 1 vegan apple with oat crust just for Emily. When I brought them over, she laughed softly. "You remembered. I told you, sweetheart," I said. "This family can have more than one recipe." That dinner felt different. No awkward silence, no edge of tension, just warmth, laughter, the clatter of dishes. And when dessert came, Emily cut the first slice of my pie herself. "Everyone," she said, smiling, "this is Grandma Mary's famous apple pie. You'll want seconds." The room applauded, light and easy. I caught Michael's eye and he mouthed, "Thank you." Later that night, as I helped Lily into her coat, Emily touched my arm. "Mary," she said softly, "thank you for giving us another chance." I looked at her, really looked, and saw not the woman who had hurt me, but the woman trying to build her own family, just like I once did. "We're all still learning," I said. "That's what families do." She nodded, eyes shining. When I left, the air outside was cold but sweet. The stars hung low over the rooftops. I whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, for pain that taught me patience, for silence that made room for grace, for love that found its way home in a different form. And that was how the cracks began to heal, not with grand apologies, but with small kindnesses, honest words, and a little space to breathe. Sometimes hearts don't mend perfectly, they just learn a new rhythm. It's been almost a year since that Sunday afternoon, the day my daughter-in-law broke my heart in front of everyone. Back then, I thought that moment would define me forever. I thought I'd always feel small, standing in that kitchen with my hands trembling and my son silent beside her. But time has a quiet way of softening even the sharpest memories. Now, when I think of that day, I don't feel anger. I just see people, all of us, trying our best with the tools we had, loving clumsily, speaking out of fear, holding on to pride when we should have held on to each other. I visit their house often now. The kids run to me when I walk through the door. Emily and I have found a rhythm that works, a balance between closeness and space. We cook together sometimes, side by side at the counter. She tells me about her work, and I tell her about the new books I'm reading, or the stray cat that keeps visiting my garden. The pie has become a family tradition again, only now it's our pie. She adds a touch of lemon juice to the filling, her twist, and I love that. It's not the recipe I once guarded so tightly, but it's something new we built together. One afternoon, as we sat outside watching the kids chase bubbles across the yard, she said, "You know, Mary, I used to think you wanted to take over everything. I smiled. And I used to think you wanted to erase me. We laughed quietly, not because it was funny, but because it was finally safe to. Then she said, I think we both just wanted to matter. And I nodded. That's all anyone wants. Later that night, when I got home, I walked into my quiet kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. I looked around. The same walls, the same ticking clock, but it all felt different now. Peaceful, whole. Sometimes I still think of James. I like to believe he's proud. Not because I stood my ground, but because I learned to let go without bitterness. I can almost hear him say, You did good, Mary. You found your way back. There's a lesson in all of this, one I wish I'd understood sooner. Love isn't about being needed. It's about being willing to show up, to listen, to change. Sometimes love means stepping back, so others can step forward. And sometimes it's about opening your arms again after being hurt, knowing that forgiveness doesn't erase pain, it transforms it. When you reach my age, you realize that families aren't perfect pictures in photo frames. They're living stories, messy, complicated, and full of edits. But if you keep showing up, keep choosing love over pride, somehow the story keeps finding its way toward grace. Now on quiet evenings, I sit by the window with my knitting and a slice of pie. Outside, the streetlights flicker on, and somewhere in the distance, children's laughter drifts through the air. I think about how life goes on, how even broken hearts can keep a steady rhythm if you let kindness guide the beat. I close my eyes, breathe in the scent of apples and cinnamon, and whisper, Thank you for the hurt, for the healing, for the chance to begin again. This was my story. A story about pain, patience, and the quiet strength that comes when you choose love, even after your heart has been broken. If you've ever felt forgotten or misunderstood, I hope my story reminds you of one thing. You are never too old or too late to begin again.